morning and welcome to the Business Brunch. And this morning we're going to be talking about digital poverty. And I'm joined by Olwyn Linton-Smith from Oxfordshire Community Foundation and Michael Hall from Thieves, the Thieves Group. Is that correct, Michael?
Correct, Richard, yeah.
Excellent. So basically, could you just maybe introduce yourselves and give your background and also what digital poverty means to you and your organisation? Maybe starting with you, Olwyn.
Hi, thanks, Richard. So I'm Olwyn Linton-Smith. I'm here, as Richard said, from Oxfordshire Community Foundation. And we have recently started on our project for Getting Oxfordshire Online, which is dealing with digital exclusion across the county of Oxfordshire. Obviously, it's not just a problem in Oxfordshire, but we are a foundation that's based in Oxfordshire. So we are looking at this as a problem across Oxfordshire. It's an issue that we've been aware of for quite some time, but obviously with COVID, it has exacerbated the situation. So the project isn't about COVID as such, but it is a project that is highlighting the importance of everyone having access to digital. It's something that used to be probably seen as a nice to have, but I think we all are aware now that if you don't have digital access, you are genuinely excluded from a lot of what happens in life. So that's why we feel it's a project that's worth tackling in its own right, alongside some of the other strategic projects that we have as the foundation.
Excellent, brilliant, Olwyn. Yeah, I mean, we've all heard plenty of horror stories over the past 9 months of how access and limited access is affected, or too many people trying to access as well. I suppose the other extreme. I mean, I heard a tale the other day of a young lady who was at a homeless shelter. No, sorry, at a food bank. Sorry, and she was a single mother of 3, and she was telling one of our members how she's basically homeschooling off a mobile phone. I mean, I'm sure she's lucky compared to a lot of people that she actually got some means of access. So. That's very difficult. Yeah. So apologies, Olwyn Linton-Smith. So I'll get it correct next time. Michael Hall, over to you.
Hello, Richard. Yeah, Michael Hall. I'm the CEO and founder of Thieves Group, based out of Milton Keynes, London, Bangalore. We're a managed service business. However, that's taken me onto a journey which is been with the WCIT, which is Working Company of Information Technologists in London. My journey there has exposed me to an organisation called Thames Reach. And Thames Reach is 2 years ago, we started working with them because the WCIT is on the panel for the homeless there, with a colleague of mine. And we engaged on a journey to look at a webinar that we did in January, how to end the digital poverty. With that, we've looked to bring in different organisations which are thought leaders, such as Raspberry Pi, Good Things Foundation, and other entities which are in business as well as government. What we see that homeless is probably, from my approach, is getting homeless people back into the system, helping them get back into a way of working. And the digital poverty there is with universal credit. Without having a digital device, you can't get universal credit. So there's an immediate problem there. Not only homeless, there's also schools, and there's also how the agencies are supported, because the agencies themselves have their own challenges, which is funding and resources. So the whole point we're looking to do as a business is to look at what we're doing as a company by doing cost optimization in cloud. And with that whole journey of cost optimization, we're looking to give 5% of our net profit to ending digital poverty. Thank you.
Excellent, fantastic. It sounds like you're quite a long way down the track, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this particular subject will be resonating with them, and it's fairly, I suppose, early days in this particular area and focus on this area. And the reason for bringing you two guys together was, obviously, I was aware from our work with OCF. This was an area of focus for you, Olwyn. Michael, we've had various conversations over the past few weeks about this being a key area for you. B4 is expanding, and we wanted to start bringing organisations together to facilitate work on common projects. And I think you two are great examples of how others can look at you and see how they can sort of join with you to sort of promote this particular area and work with each other. Because I think when we discussed this in the briefing, Michael, why reinvent the wheel? There's a lot of understanding and knowledge that you've picked up over the past year or so, few years in the work that you've done. How can others learn from your experience and get further down the track quicker? So it really is an opportunity for us to embrace other organisations that have this as in their sights and want to help. So you referenced some of the groups, Michael, that this affects. There's also the elderly as well, which I think we touched on the other day, didn't we, Owen, as a critical group that need access as well.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think there's obviously a range of different groups, whether it's school children or elderly or the homeless. There's a whole range of people that are affected by this. And I think the barriers why these people are excluded varies as well. I mean, we know obviously poverty is a key barrier, but also training, particularly with older people, is a real issue, because there's a fear perhaps of getting online and not understanding how to do it. People hear about scams and all of that, and there are all sorts of different barriers that we need to break down. And it is a long-term problem, and a long-term problem needs a long-term solution, which is one of the reasons when we at OCF work with our partners and organisations, it's really important that we're building a solution to this that is coming from the community, so that the support is there locally to help people. So whether they need devices because they haven't got a laptop or a phone or whatever, or whether they can't get connected, or whether they haven't got the skills, all of those three things, if you haven't got any one of those three, it's going to be a barrier for you. And it's understanding what the barriers are for people first, and then working with the various groups who perhaps have got better experience of a particular segment of society to then come up with a solution for those individuals. It's not a one size fits all, and I think that's really important. So it's not something you can solve quickly. It's something that's an ongoing working together within the local communities, building that support. So eventually it's not a problem at all, but that's not something that can happen without that engagement locally and with, I think, a whole range of partners. And you mentioned, Richard, that, learning from other people. I don't think any of us has got the solution to this. I think we can learn from different bits of activity that are happening elsewhere. We can apply that in our local settings and learn from what others have found works and doesn't work. So I think having these conversations, as you say, is really valuable in all of that.
Thank you. And Michael, we've shared in the article for this particular business brunch and in the information below on YouTube, various links about organisations, as Olwen referred to, that are some way down the line already. So I don't know whether you want to make reference to people like the Good Things Foundation, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things with the Good Things Foundation, I've had a couple of conversations. It really is about the hyperlocal. Really, locally, we as in our community, the YMCA, as I mentioned earlier. I think if you look at the Good Things Foundation, they've got their URL, which is Learn My Way, which basically gives you the internet, teach yourself online learning. There's the actual the BT program, which give a laptop. There's a Good Things Foundation to recycle your electricals. So I think by basically having the index in our communities, by us inside your magazine, Richard, I think by having an index there, it's just where do people go? And I think if we can just be a signpost to create the hyperlocal movement, because again, resources are so scarce. As long as people are signposted where to go, where to get the information, I think that would be step one to get those organisations, the URLs, which would give them access to the information. So that would be one of my first thoughts towards part of the solution, because there's no sort of like wonder drug here or wonder pill. All we can do is put a plaster over the load-bearing issues, and that's giving people access. I think there's the other side to it, which is a Kickstarter and the gateway, because I know I've got young daughters myself, and I've got nieces and etc. in London, in the home counties, and even speaking to them, where is the gateway? Where is the Kickstarter? How do they get onto these programs? I think it's more about information, and I think with your medium that you're using here, Richard, I think it could be a great platform to springboard that index and that signpost where people go to get the information.
I mean, I know within the B4 community, this topic has cropped up on a number of discussions that we've had. One of you was mentioning, I think the other day in the briefing, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was in another meeting that we had, where I think somebody said they had 3 laptops that they're not using, about 4 phones. Maybe it was you, Michael, I think, that was saying, you know, what you've got lying around, and every business, I mean, I know we do, we've got plenty of stuff lying around that can all be put to good use. So
yeah. And even and
involved in this
Hyperlocal, in the Hyperlocal, you know, there's a YMCA in Milton Keynes. I'm not sure if there's one in Oxford.
There is, yeah, near the train station.
Yeah, so we start talking to the Good Things Foundation to recycle your electricals. They've got a URL there. Maybe, just maybe we can talk to the YMCA and say, look, you know, this could be a deposit area where people drop off their devices. The people at the YMCAs can be trained how to then actually wipe these devices in the right way, because it has to follow a certain process before those devices can go to the public, right?
But I think one of the things that certainly is important to us is having, you know, clear guidelines for people, process for people about how to do this. Because I think, you know, from our perspective, we're going to be working, we hope, with businesses to ask them to donate their devices as well, but also members of the public. And obviously, if you're asking people to do that, the people donating need to have confidence that, yes, their data will be wiped securely from it. It'll then be prepared, it'll then be used. But making that easy for people, you know, working with organizations who will be able to have, you know, donation points and get these out in a way that's useful to people who need them. And then obviously, where necessary, supporting people to actually use them then, because no point giving them and then they can't use them. So it's joining up all of that. Of course, making use of, you know, the experience that's already there in the community, but also where necessary, setting up new hubs and so on to do that. That's certainly what we're planning to do here in Oxfordshire.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Oxford, the OCF there, Owen, I look at, you've got other organisations such as the Chambers of Commerce, all these different places. People need to know where to go. And some people know where Chambers of Commerce are. Some people know where the OCF are. Some people know where the DWP building is. Some people know where the actual YMCA is. Some people know where the Citizens of Advice building is. Some people know where the Job Centre is. I think really, do we create a signpost to drop off their items here and then delivered to a central depository of an organisation that can wipe them and then put them back into schools and into the homeless.
Yeah, certainly the plan is to have a seamless process so that it's easy for people to follow and bring everything together onto our website so everybody can see you know, what to get where really, and how to do it as well, how to do just simple instructions. You know, if you've got something you want to donate, how do you do that, and how do you know it's going to go to somebody who needs it? That's you know, that's it in a nutshell, really, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. And I think there's also the second challenge. It's great to give people these devices. The thing is, as Richard said earlier, there was a lady who was actually at the food bank, and she's got her children working off of a device, a mobile device. The thing is, the story extends beyond that, because it was a choice of food or data. Now, if people, the thing is, it's all well and good saying, here's your device, but then you've got to have it connected wireless. You've got to have the actual your 5G, your 4G, and those things cost money. And what we can't do is then we can't put the telcos on the hook for those sort of things, because I don't think that's the approach. I think it will be a federated decision incentivized through government to allow those things to happen. But I don't think we could hold a telco to account. It's no matter how do you then create the ecosystem for people to have free data if they are homeless, if they are essential workers, if they are, you know, people who children at schools.
So we're talking the morning after Prime Minister announced a roadmap to coming out of this nightmare for all of us. Some significantly worse than others, obviously. What in a year's time, you know, hopefully I know we're talking before we started, and Michael's predicting August, but let's we're out a little bit before. What's your hope for 12 months' time, Owen? On you know, how do we measure success in this particular area? As you say, it's not an easy nut to crack, so it's going to be fairly slow progress.
No, it's certainly not an easy nut to crack. And I think I'd go back to the point that this project for us is really not about COVID as such. I mean, obviously COVID has made the issue worse. But what we've seen over the last however many years is more and more services, whether it's banking or shopping or education or applying for jobs, everything like that you now do online, not necessarily just online, but a lot of things, if you're not online, it's very hard to do them. And I think, as I say, it's moved from being something that was a nice to have a few years ago to being something that really, if you haven't got it, it's a real problem for you now. And as the COVID thing in itself, while obviously it's made it worse, whether that's here or not is actually not the key thing for us. So in our planning, we're looking at this as quite a long-term plan. So we are looking at it on a 3-4 year sort of cycle, with the hope that by the time we get to 2024, 2025, most, if not all, of the people who are currently not online in Oxfordshire will be. Now, we're talking a lot of people. We think there could be as many as 40,000 people across Oxfordshire who are not online at the moment. It's very hard to get exact numbers on this, as I'm sure you would be aware, but it's somewhere in that region. And obviously what we are hoping will happen is that, we'll build up, a way of doing this that works. That'll happen gradually, but then you'll see that as it becomes more established, you'll start to see that more and more people know how to access the support they need, that we're getting some of this donation pipeline working more seamlessly. Some of the questions that Michael's raised around how to get data to those people who needed the connectivity piece, we've got more answers on that. But some of it can happen relatively quickly, I would say. So I would hope that we start to get that donation pipeline working quite quickly. But some of the other questions are harder nuts to crack because it is a long-term problem and therefore it needs a long-term solution. So I don't think we should rush to try to say, well, we've got to get it all done in a year, because I don't think that's feasible. I don't think it's possible. And if we did, we wouldn't actually have solved the root problem. I think that would be the sort of sticking plaster approach, if you like. Whereas what we really need to do is to try to make a change that means that we're not getting people continually coming through who are the next tranche of people with the problem. We need to solve the bigger problem as well as sort of doing the short-term solution, if you like.
No, I understand it. I suppose I'm referencing lockdown. Hopefully there'll be more movement, obviously, afterwards, and that will help the flow of everything that you're trying to put in.
Yeah.
So for that reason, really. And Michael, for you, as Alwyn said, obviously this isn't going to be solved in a year, but where would you like to see yourself in a year in terms of progress?
In a year's time, as Alwyn said, it's not the COVID-19 is the issue. I think what the outcome of COVID, I think you're going to find that the people are going to be, a lot of people will be out of work. That's the first thing. When the return to work side of things comes about, I think the whole hyper-local piece, I think is, where do people go? Where is the actual, where's the signpost? I think for me, if we can just create the signpost, and because by the time the message gets to everybody, so maybe there's in a year's time, if there was an annual kind of event around the hyperlocal, which involved schools, the agencies and other entities, to businesses included, as an annual event, I think that could be a good thing. Because I think, as Alwyn said, this is not a 1 year cure. I think we've got 5-10 years of getting out of this. The pandemic has actually caused a massive economical disaster for the country, and the plane was crashed several times last year, and we've got a long journey to repair it. And that's our whole community and our society. That's our job as citizens of this country.
Brilliant. Well, we'd like to do our bit. So what we're going to be doing monthly from March onwards is inviting people like Alwyn and Michael to join us to discuss this particular issue and see what solutions are in place. And as Michael said, help that signposting. So hopefully on screen now, you've got our digital inclusion coming soon to be for TV slide. We'd like to invite anybody that would like to help solve this particular issue to get in contact with us, or get in contact with Alwyn to support OCF, or get in contact with Michael to support the initiatives that you're part of, so that we can just keep pushing pushing this particular agenda, and hopefully coming up with some real solutions for those that are in most need. But thank you both for joining us this morning.
Yeah.
Really